Alright, this next question comes from Flameboy92, and he asks, what's your ideal girlfriend or taste in women? Well, if you've seen the thumbnail of this video, you kinda have a good idea on the types of women I've always been into. But basically, to answer your question, I've always been into chicks who are just chilled and cool. And what I mean by that is that she just doesn't give a fuck. And I don't mean not give a fuck to the point to where anything could happen. But, a chick who's more introverted or a homebody. She's one that doesn't have many friends and one that doesn't like going out to a lot of these parties like most girls out there. Like, she's one I have a lot in common with. Like, she loves horror movies and listens to rock music. And in a way, she's kind of a nerd, but not too nerdy. Like, she enjoys playing video games and watches anime somewhat. And she's one that wants to live in a more suburban area. And that's pretty much it. I personally think having an introverted relationship with a girl is the best type of relationship. Especially if she likes to play video games or watch horror movies with you all day. Especially watching horror movies for a whole month. And that's pretty much what me and my girl have been doing all month long. Like, every year in October, we'd watch horror movies every day for a whole month. And that's kind of a yearly tradition for us. Now, ethnicity-wise, I prefer chicks who are either Caucasian or Asian. Mainly because they are into more cooler shit than black and Hispanic chicks, who just act like a bunch of hood rats. And she has to be one I find attractive. Like, I'm not saying she has to be like supermodel hot, although I do prefer that. And look, I'm not saying that I would ever date a chick who is butt ugly either. Hell no. Oh no. My standards are way higher than that. But she at least has to be above average, or at least a 7. Like I mentioned, I don't date chicks of my own race or Hispanic chicks. Mainly because most of them I've encountered in my lifetime live up to their stereotypes. Just very sassy, rude, and just stuck up, man. They listen to rap music and reggaeton, like all that shit. Ugh. And yeah, I know any type of women from different ethnic backgrounds can be a bunch of cunts, but these chicks are just something else. Ugh. Not saying they're all bad, because I dated this one Puerto Rican chick back in high school, and she didn't act like a stereotype. Like, she was actually a pretty attractive goth who was into anime, horror movies, and video games, and a lot of that cool shit. And she was actually pretty attractive. However, things didn't work out, but we're still friends to this day. But luckily, I met my girlfriend at a 2014 metal concert. And she kinda has that goth or rock and roll image. And yeah, I think rock and roll and goth chicks rule. And when I mean rock and roll chicks, I'm talking about chicks who look like they're into rock music. Kind of like the former WWE diva Lita. But not too much like Lita, because we all know she cheated on Matt Hardy. But not just like her, but also rock and roll chicks like Alyssa Whiteglutz from Arch Enemy, Amy Lee from Evanescence, and even 90 the female grunge bands like L7 or Veruca Salt. Yeah, chicks like that rule. And if I feel like she's a good person, she's understanding, she's not too bossy, demanding, or a total bitch, she's good in bed and she makes me happy, then she's a total keeper. Alright, here's the second question. What did you think of the new Batman Adventures? And I'm assuming you're talking about the cartoon from the 90s that came after the animated series. I personally found it to be a highly underrated series. Yeah, some people are going to bitch about the art style change from the animated series, but I didn't really have much of a problem with it when I saw it as a kid. But I get why they did it, because they wanted to match the animation style to that Superman cartoon that came after the animated series. And I personally didn't mind it. I thought the animation looked better and more modernized for 1997 standards. However, the design changes of the characters was either hit or miss for me. Like, I did like Scarecrow's design, as he looked more scarier than he did from the previous seasons of the animated series. However, the Joker's design I found to be rather lazy and disappointing. Like, they couldn't even think of any cool face paint designs for the Joker, but just this white skin with Mickey Mouse eyes. I'm sorry, but that was just lazy right there. But the other character design changes I didn't mind, like Two-Face, who pretty much looked the same. Same for Harley Quinn. Killer Croc's design was okay. But Bruce Wayne and Poison Ivy looked way younger compared to their original designs from the animated series. And this show is supposed to take place a few years later, which I found rather weird. But to me, it wasn't that much of a negative. But aside from the design changes, I personally enjoyed the show as a kid and still do to this day. I just liked how this series showed Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne had a huge falling out, which made him go solo and become Nightwing. And let me tell you, it was done much better in that series than it was in Batman and Robin, I'll say that. Also, giving Harley Quinn her own origin story was great, but I didn't like how they brought back Mr. Freeze. Like, seriously, his wife leaving him and then marrying someone else was just cold. No pun intended. But yeah, I enjoyed the show. Yeah, maybe it was a little less darker than the animated series, but I still thought it was a strong follow-up. Sadly, the show didn't last long. I believe it only lasted about 24 episodes. And that's where we got Batman Beyond, which I enjoyed also. It's not better than the animated series, but it's still a pretty good show. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Alright, and his final question. What's your most hated movie of all time? Oh god. One of the biggest ones to me that comes to mind is Alien 3. To this day, this piece of shit movie still pisses me off for ruining the Alien franchise. And I know others like Rambo Rare for Life, OCP Communications, and Fabio, who's the Italian stallion, really despises this movie, and I can't blame them one bit because fuck this movie. And yeah, these guys are really good movie reviewers, by the way, so if you like movies, I recommend you check them out. But with Alien 3, why I say this is my most hated movie of all time was because this felt like such a huge middle finger and a slap in the face to fans who enjoyed Aliens, which was a great sequel and is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I actually do own the movie on a Blu-ray, by the way. Now, I didn't see this movie in theaters when it first came out because I was way too young back then to see it, but I actually did see it in my preteen years in middle school. And this is when I rented these movies at Blockbuster. A teacher of mine knew how much I was into the horror genre, and at times would show me some classic horror movies even before my time. And one of them was the first Alien movie he actually let me borrow on VHS. And I'll be honest, when I first saw the movie, I was incredibly bored watching it, at least in the first part of the movie before the chestburster scene. But over the years, as I've gotten older and smarter, I've learned to really appreciate the slow parts of the movie as it builds up to the real interesting stuff. And I had no idea when the chestburster scene happened and the actors were in shock was their actual reaction when seeing that baby alien pop out of the man's chest. But I enjoyed the movie and appreciate it. Now, Aliens was also a movie I rented at Blockbuster, and I thought it was an amazing sequel because you had a really likable cast from Bill Paxton, Lance Hendrickson, and Michael Biehn. Ripley was more fleshed out, and I didn't mind Newt. To me, she was one of the more better child characters in movies, and I just liked how the first movie was more of a suspenseful horror movie, whereas the sequel became an action horror movie. And I think this and Terminator 2 are two of my favorite action movies of all time. And not just for the action genre, but two of my favorite movies in general. Which is why it was a real shame how Alien 3 fucked up everything in the franchise. And Alien 3 was also a movie I rented at Blockbuster. Look, I know Alien 3 has its fanbase, and I still don't understand why. I mean, like, some even prefer it more than Aliens. Which, I'm sorry, but you'd have to have serious bad taste to think this was a better movie than Aliens. Like, come on, you got people out there saying this was a masterpiece or a work of art? Get the fuck out of here with that shit. What this was to me was a work of shit. A movie that tries to be intelligent but fails on every level. I mean, just from killing off Hicks and Newt, that was immediately a huge turnoff for me. Then you got Ripley fucking some dude after her friends died, which seemed so stupid because this seemed so unlike Ripley, and I did not give a shit about the story involving murderers and rapists. Like, I just hate Alien 3 with a burning passion, and yes, I hate this movie more than Alien Resurrection, because this is honestly where the franchise went downhill, as they fucked up everything, and since then it has not recovered. Like, I would have been fine if they just ended it at Aliens, because at least this movie wouldn't exist, but unfortunately we have to live with the fact that it does. And what makes me even more angry is that this wasn't the original script for the movie. Like, dude, this film was going through developmental hell with so many rewrites, and let me tell you, those scripts were a hell of a lot better than what we got, especially the William Gibson script. Now, I actually do own the graphic novel of Alien 3, which was written by William Gibson, and I really wish that this would have been what we originally got. But hey, if they could make an Alien 3 animated movie, then I'd be down for it. Like, I don't care if the movie is in anime form, just make it happen. You know, give the fans what they want. It's the least thing they can do after giving us that shitty movie. But yeah, fuck Alien 3. And thank you for your questions. Alright, so the next question we have here is from Stating the Obvious Dude. And he asks, are you a fan of the band Ailstorm, the pirate metal band? Yeah, kind of. But I haven't listened to too much of their stuff though. I'd say they're a pretty good band. Ailstorm is fascinating in that's a band that somehow manages to sound imposing, badass, hilarious, and surprisingly likable despite being murderous alcoholic pirates. Few bands or personas ever manage to accomplish that. So to me, they're not a bad band. Alright, his second question. What is the very first movie you remember seeing in theaters? It really has to be a toss-up between Casper the Ghost and a Goofy movie. But I'm pretty sure it was a Goofy movie that I saw first in theaters, and then I saw Casper the Ghost second. I can't tell you too well because I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was like that. And I gotta say, 95 was honestly for me a pretty big year in terms of movie viewings in theaters with my uncle. Like, other movies I've seen that year were Batman Forever, the Mortal Kombat movie, and then Toy Story. But yeah, I'd probably say a Goofy movie was my first movie theater experience. And your third question, what are some of your favorite sitcoms from the 90s? Well, we're gonna be here all day with this one. But just to answer your question really quickly, I'm just gonna name drop a few shows that I did remember liking as a kid. So one of them we have here is Married with Children, which is one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. Boy Meets World, one of my favorite teen sitcoms. Seinfeld, a pretty good show with a disappointing ending. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Then we got Home Improvement. And I guess you can say Saved by the Bell, even though the show started in the late 80s. But yeah, I did enjoy the show a lot. Even the show that came before that, Good Morning Miss Bliss, was okay. And The College Years I did not care for. And The New Class was a piece of shit. And just to name a few shows that I did like were The Nanny. Friends is kinda overrated, but it's not bad, I'll say that. So, The Bill Cosby Show. Although I will say I can't watch the show the same ever again with all the rape allegations with Bill Cosby. And even some Nickelodeon shows I did enjoy were Kenan and Kel and all that. And that's pretty much it really, so, yeah, but there you go. Alright, so the next question we have here is from Nightshade. And he asked me, what's your favorite season? This might be an unpopular one, but of all seasons, I've always loved the fall and autumn season the most. Why? Well, for one thing, my birthday is in October. I also love it when the weather feels cooler, the leaves change, you know, scary movies are on TV, you have people decorating their houses with a lot of Halloween decorations, those Reese pumpkins are in stores again. And I just love these really cool forests that kind of remind you of what you would see from a horror movie or a Silent Hill game. Especially when it gets cloudy. You know, it just looks really cool and badass. Like, I don't know, there's just something about this year that just gives me that awesome feeling. But my only negative about the fall season is that it leads to winter, and I cannot stand the winter season. You know, there's just way too much snow and way too much shoveling for me, and it's just a lot of unneeded extra work for me. The summertime for me is overrated because it gets way too fucking hot, and you have a lot of these bugs and insects biting you like, ugh. You know, especially when you're camping, it just gets really annoying. In the springtime, I actually do like because of the warm weather. Like, if you were to ask me from my least favorite to my favorites, it would be winter being my least favorite, summer being next, spring being my second favorite, and the fall season being my favorite. But yeah, there's your answer. Alright, your second question. What got you into techno or electronic music? Well, if you've been paying attention to the previous parts of my Q&As, I did say it was through the 1995 Mortal Kombat and Hackers movies. Those were really what got me into techno music, and Blade was like the first movie that ever got me into the rave scene. And why I got into it was mainly because I thought techno music was a cool genre. I do love technology, as I think it's one of the few things that mankind got right. I do love the cyberpunk genre from Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell, and even the music from Blade Runner, which was a lot of synthwave. To me, techno is that cool underground sound that you never thought existed. It kinda reminds me of those brief scenes in movies where they walk in these super dark clubs with intense music playing. And when I first stepped foot in a half-an-hour clubs playing techno all night long, I kinda realized that these places do exist, and I never want to leave. Techno to me is so effortlessly cool. Like, it isn't trying too hard, and it isn't trying too fast or slow either. It's just right. You can dance all night and never get sick of it. And nothing beats the energy of a good crowd and a good set also. Though I will say I hate dubstep because it sounds like two robots fucking each other. Like, I want good techno music, like some good acid house shit, progressive trance, psytrance, or goa trance. And you know, shit like that sounds way better than dubstep. Fact. You know, something you would listen to from Juno Reactor, Daniel Lesden, and Astral Projection. You know, good techno with a good build-up and rhythm behind it. And your last question, what's your favorite wrestling intro of all time? To me, it has to be a tie between both versions of Thorn in Your Eye from Rise Wars intro of 1997, where you see Stone Cold Steve Austin walking through this tunnel, I believe, and you see him walking through flames like a badass, and you even see dogs barking and Ahmad Johnson kicking a door open. That's one of my favorite intros. And my second is the other version of Thorn in Your Eye from late 1998. And that intro right there is what we all recognize as the official theme song for the Attitude Era. And this is what wrestling needs, some kick-ass heavy metal theme songs to get you pumped up for the show. Same goes for the Across the Nation intro from the Union Underground. That was awesome as well. And yeah, there you go.